let's get going then. What I thought I'd do is just give you just a bit more of a closer look in detail before I start making the card with them today, because I know they flick through them, but there's so much to get through on the shows. So these kits, these paper pads, as I was saying this morning on the shows, they come loose leaf, but they still have this lovely cover to them, so it keeps them protected. And you can see we get 24 sheets, we get 8 designs and 3 designs of each. So what I done from that, I immediately just took one sheet out from each design and just put that aside so I can just sit and look at them. They won't be touched for a good while yet, but you can see that we still have plenty more paper to work with. It's a really good size, an 8x8 size, so it will cover pretty much most of your card blank sizes, whether you make square cards, the traditional rectangle cards, circle cards, or whatever. So this is the collage floral. As I say, I'll give you a quick look at the actual designs before we start creating with them. And as Lisa rightly said this morning, there is a real good crossover on colours and designs between this and the vintage garden also, because you see in this beautiful one here, they really are collaged prints, but you have all sorts of colours in here, and they really do work for probably both men and women, because there's a really good mix of floral and sort of script background in each of them, and you really can cherry pick out of each 8x8 sheet what part of the design you want to use. These are single-sided sheets, thankfully actually, because I really don't know what I would do myself if they were double-sided, because it would just be heartbreaking to not use the beautiful design on the back. So they're really lovely quality. I mean, they're 200 GSM. They feel almost like a lightweight cardstock. They are fabulous. They're not coated, so they have a really lovely surface to them, which would be ideal if they were to take any inks as well, if that's what you wanted to do with them. Now this design is probably one of my favourites, mainly because it's predominantly blue. Also it has so much script in the background and sort of ledger detail. It has the leaves with the flowers and the botanical feel. That I think is just absolutely stunning, and this is why I had to just put one sheet from each of these designs away, not to be used. There's a sort of faux stenciling on there, which again is something that I always try to create when I actually do my inky backgrounds on my own cards as well. So this really appeals to me. I really love that. Then we have a paler colour again. We've gone slightly pinkier tones, but we still have the stunning blues in here. And we have the birds and the flowers in the background. Again, you can still see there's so much script in the background. And actually looking at it, it's actually got sort of words here, sort of random words. But it's actually got McDonald printed on there, which is my maiden name. So that's why this really appeals to me. So I really like that. And I think another sheet, yeah, we've got another sheet here which says McDonald. So yeah, that's just a really nice detail that's, to say, personal to me. So this is why these designs really speak to me. But isn't that just glorious? Then we have this one again. Again, we were introducing some purples, but we still have the same flowers running through and some pinks, and you can see how the colours just work. Stunning. Still elements of text and sort of stenciling. Same again, we have the old text in the background, we have the pink flowers, the blue flowers there. There is just so much detail actually. The more you look at it, I mean, there's so much detail inside here, and I don't know. Oh no, the computer is picking that up pretty well. But as I say, you really can just cherry pick the elements from here. And if you were to cover most of this up, okay, and you just wanted to cherry pick, just say that part, you'd have no idea that the rest of the page was floral. So this would be ideal to use on like a mail card or something that doesn't include any floral detail. See, this is where these papers are so clever. And Lisa's done a fabulous job in bringing us such versatile papers to us. Again, we've introduced a little bit of white detail in here. But again, the same flowers and just the way that it's layered, it has that continuity of colour and pattern all the way through, but giving us a completely different look on this 8x8 sheet. This one here brings in the pinks again, the same tones, but we have some music in the background and some butterflies, so this is probably slightly more floral, but we still have the same sort of faux stenciling in the background. And this one here I think might be my ultimate favourite, purely because of the colour. I love this dusky blue, sort of powdery blue, and that's the predominant colour on this page, and I just love all of these. I mean, if Lisa were to bring out stamps in this sort of design, I would be in heaven. So just a little thought there. So yeah, these are just stunning papers. And they actually look better in real life than they do on screen looking at them actually. They've got a real softness to them. So they are gorgeous, and so they come in this lovely cover slip, so that does protect them, so you can keep them nice and tidy when you put them away with the rest of the stash. And also we have the epoxy domes, which again, these are just genius. I mean, these will just add a touch of class to your project. If I just put them against a white page, and as Lisa said this morning, what she's taken is just tiny little elements of the design paper and secured that under the dome there. And she's been, say, clever with the colours that shine, you know, that come through. Oh, they're just beautiful. They're just absolutely lovely. I love this collection, and you can probably tell by all the samples that the rest of the design team have been sharing in our Facebook group that we've all loved using them. Okay, so leave those there. Now, the card I'll be creating for you today, I don't actually have the physical card with me because I actually sent it into the show. So I'm just going to bring in my iPad there, and hopefully, let's just wait for my computer to catch up. Hopefully you'll be able to see this well enough on, oh yeah, that works, without too much interference. This is the card that I'll be creating for you today. So it's actually using the nesting triangle dies, or the nested triangle dies. They weren't in the show today, but they are on Lisa's website. And again, like most of the cards that I do, if you don't have the triangles, or triangles don't float your boat, try it with the hearts. Try it with the circles, or the torn edge circles that Lisa's done as well. You know, just try something different. All I'm showing you is how to layer, and just how my thought process is in creating this sort of card. And you'll see in the background here that I've actually used some of the texture stamps as well, and I was so pleased that these were back on the show today, that this just adds just that tiny bit of detail in the background, and I was able to pretty well colour match the colours from the papers with the Distress Oxide inks that I stamped with. So and it's probably my two favourite colours that I would go to. So we've got the Speckled Egg and the Antique Linen, which is a combination that I have actually used in the past. If you go back on the YouTube channel and see my other Facebook lives, I have actually used these before. So the fact that these matched these papers today perfectly was just perfect, I'd say. So we'll just put that to one side. Okay, so as I say, I was using the nesting triangles, so I'll just bring the triangles in. You can see here. Again, I put them on the magnetic mat. They don't come on that. But these, I'll just show you the sizes I was using. I wasn't using the larger sizes, and this is what's so perfect about these nesting sets. You really can cherry pick what suits you and the project the best. So these were the sizes that I used for the card. And I think possibly the reason why I went for these triangles initially is because I always find it really hard to cut into such beautiful papers. And I thought, if I'm going to create the samples for Lisa, I'll just ease myself into using them. And by die cutting and cherry picking the designs from the pieces of paper, I actually didn't use as much paper as I thought I would, but just using these sample triangles on the plain background card, I think really brings the patterns of the paper to life. So you can see here how I've actually die cut the design papers. And as I say, you can really sort of cherry pick, because you're using these individual dies. If you decided you want just a script part, then just put your die in that section there. And then you can just move your dies about. If you wanted a floral section, you can perhaps put that there. I did use 3 sets of, or 3 pages, and I tried to choose sheets of the designs that were slightly different in colours, that would actually give me a contrast when I actually started layering up the triangles. So you can see here, this is slightly paler blue, which introducing the purples. This one here is the predominantly blues, and I used a lot of the script sections from this. And from this section here, this paper, which I've used most of that one actually, but let me just see. This section, this piece of paper here, was actually this as a whole, and I used the floral sections of this. So you can see how the colours do mix well in all of them, but they are slightly different, because as I say, what you want is a contrast between each of the triangles for this design to work. But obviously there's a common theme running through them all that will tie the design together. So I'll just bring in the triangles. I say, in itself, the card actually is really quite straightforward. It's really all about sort of using the shapes and creating something nice and fresh. So you can see the triangles, and I possibly actually won't even use all of these, but it's just giving myself options so I can play. Now imagine these though, if these were the hearts or the circles, you can create this design in any of the shapes. I think they'd work really well. But with the triangle, it's just something a little bit different, something a little bit fresh and modern, and probably ideal for a guy's card too. So you can see there, we have basically 3 sets of triangles, all slightly, slightly different in colour. So we'll use that sort of characteristic of each triangle to sort of build up the card. So there's not a huge amount of complication in that really. And I'll just move those to the side now. So we have our triangles to work with. It's always best to have more on hand, just say you can always keep them in the handy storage packets that the dies come in. So anything you don't use, just pop into there. I mean, I've got a set of triangles sitting here that I've used for other cards actually. These are sort of plain coloured ones, but they're greys and creams, something that I would easily use on other cards. So I'll just keep them aside, or keep them in the envelope, and I'll possibly use them on another project. So again, I will be using a square card, which is my favourite card to use. I've created the matin layer, which is this lovely greeny grey sort of background, which is neutral enough to go with all 3 colours, but it just gives that sort of pop of colour behind. Now, because I'm using the triangles also, I just thought, just as a bit of a contrast and just add some little bit of detail, I've just die cut a little triangle in the base there. Now, I've done this first time, initially when I'm creating this card, because I've already created this card once before, and I actually put this the die cut triangle into the base card after I'd created the rest of it, so that's how I knew where to put that this time. But I just needed a little bit of something just to add just a little bit of detail, just to lift the rest of the card, and I thought that just worked really well. And what I will do, I will end up probably put 3D foam behind this, so this will give that sense of depth with that triangle there, but you'll see how that all comes together in a moment. So really now all we do is just sort of start playing. We bring in our triangles, and we can just start layering like so. Obviously you work probably a rule of thumb, you use the larger triangles towards the back, and we just take different textures, different shapes and the different sizes, and just start layering them like so. And it really is a case of just playing, to be honest. Now, I did like the thought of having one just up there, just to add that bit of balance. And this is always a good thing. Don't stick anything down at this stage, just place, because you'll find you'll want to move things about. You'll perhaps want to place things underneath, over the top. I don't know, let's say, and it's a really quite a good idea to do this because you possibly end up making something quite different each time round. So this is where we used to start playing actually, and sometimes I find if it's not quite coming together the way that I would want it, I leave a design as it is on the table, go away, make a cup of tea, make dinner, play with the dog or something, and then come back and have a look. And it might only sometimes might just need to move one element, and then all of a sudden the whole thing comes together and it's looking how I want it. So we're just all about creating the texture here, and you can see now how these designs of the papers work so well with each other. I'm going to use some of these little tiny ones. I mean, what might be a nice idea to do this also is to actually create your back panel that you don't cut into with the design paper, and use complementary colours on top, plain colours. Pick out a powdery blue and use that on top of the design paper. You know, maybe you could emboss these triangles. That might be another way to enhance the design papers. If you actually wanted to showcase more of the papers themselves in the design, that might be a way to do it also. Which might be something I might try myself actually. You can see how I'm just layering these and replacing, just mixing and matching. I might bring in some of this purple. Actually, I might not. Who knows? I'm not even sure if I might need it. I could always put that like so, couldn't I? I think that works. Perhaps balance that purple up by putting another one there. So, I actually quite like that at the moment. What do you think? What do you think? I quite like these little ones also, just to sort of fill little gaps. I always like white space in my cards. I really do. I like to have a good balance of white around. I think it adds a nice balance to what you're creating. So I might actually put that one there. I think that looks nice and even. I like the way that that's sitting. Now, and I've actually used the majority of triangles there actually. Now, before we start sticking these down, we do need to think about whether we want to put some of our texture stamps in the background. And I think it is worth doing. Just add a little bit of subtle stamping in the background, because it would lift perhaps what otherwise might be quite a flat sort of two-dimensional card. So, I mean, these are a fan favourite of the design team, and I always use these. So I'm so happy that these came back in to stock. Now, what we want is really, for me, I think really subtle stamping in the background, and you can see straight away that by bringing these two colours in, that they match so well with the backgrounds of these. So that, I think, is just genius on Lisa's part, that she picked my favourite colours to use. So, now I'm going to go with the sort of paint splat one, because this is a really nice, simple stamp to use in the background. Now, you can use this without a stamp block if you just want something soft, and we can just go straight down. Mine need a bit of a wash it, I think, but they're not too sticky, so they might fall. So I will use a block on mine. I suppose you can plan the colours a little bit, because I'm only using the two and they work so well with the triangles. You can perhaps balance out your colours where you've got a lot of blue up here. I might want to stamp in the antique linen, and then along this side where you don't have so much blue, you might want to stamp in this speckled egg. That's how I would perhaps choose to stamp, and how I would think about the composition. If this is a design that's perhaps a style that is new to you, and you perhaps asking a question, how do I know where to stamp and what to stamp, that's sort of what my thought process would be, if that's of any use to you. Now, what I'm doing, I'm just lifting off those triangles, so that gives me the space to stamp, because I don't want to stamp on the papers. You can do, but I don't at this stage. And you see I've just put a little bit of detail there. It didn't stamp perfectly, that I don't mind, because this is It is a rough and ready design, and it is a modern design. Now what I'm going to do, you'd notice I've taken this off the block because I want to have just a little bit more control over where I'm stamping. So I'm going to take this triangle away and I shall stamp the blue like that and put that back there. And you can start seeing already just how that is working. If this style is new to you, just go small and just use lighter colours and build up the colours really slowly, you know. I'm going to take those two away because I want to put some script in here, and this script is perfect because it will echo the script that sits on the design papers. Now I'm only inking up part of this stamp. I don't need it all because that would be too much in that area. So I'm just stamping that up, or inking that up, sorry, and just stamping that in there. And you can see that that is just enough of a colour just to create enough detail that when I put those triangles back, it just adds that little bit of something. I don't know what it is, it's hard to put into words. It's just something that I find really pleasing to look at, and I just really like the way that it builds up. And I'm keeping the triangles in place because I would find it hard to place these stamp designs to create the look that I want by not having the triangles there. So mix and match, take things on and off. If you find it simpler, what you can do is put the triangles on, take your photo on the phone, so you've got a reference point, take all your triangles off, and then do the stamping that way, and then, you know, replace your triangles. I've done that in the past as well, and that is a technique that I use quite a lot too. So I just wanted a bit of colour there. Now always do your secondary stamping as well, and your third generation stamping, because that gives you fainter impressions again, which gives the impression of it fading out towards the edge, which is a lovely technique to use. So I'm not going to go mad with that again. I'm just going to replace those triangles there. I think that works just nice, and I might just need a little bit of something there, and then I think I might just call it a day on that, because remember I still have the matten layer to sit on this on, and although it's only a tiny bit around the outside, you'll be amazed at how much that will lift the whole design. So I'm going to put that there like so, and I think I might just leave it at that at this stage. I think you get the idea of where I'm going with that, and this sort of thing, it really is so personal. I can't tell you the right way to do it. You need to work, you know, so that it's pleasing to your eye. So you can see that when I put this on the matten layer, it takes on a whole different look, and it ties everything together. Just because this hue, this colour in the background is just a dark neutral, it brings together the whole design, and you can see we've still got that element, that triangle in the centre there, which just draws that into the design. This is how I like to create. I mean, everybody's got their different styles, haven't they? So now I can start thinking about adding these permanently onto the background. So I'm going to start gluing these on, and I will introduce some dimension with some 3D foam. Come on, glue, okay, nicely. There we are. So obviously the ones at the back we put down first. I'll start gluing these down like that there, and I'll put this one down here. I think I said when I put up the invitation or the reminder that Facebook Live was happening today, that I think is possibly my most favourite card that I've created in a while. This sort of style, for some reason, it always draws. It's something I've had in my head for a good while, and I don't know, I think it just works so well. It's a really nice sort of combination of colours and patterns, but yet it's still sort of simple, and you've got your white space in the background as well. I think it just works. I like it. Okay, so I'm going to put that one in the background, and it's something that will look very different each time round. I mean, it's got the same structure as the card that I created initially, but I'm pretty sure I've used a few more triangles this time round, so it will look a little bit different. Okay, let's get myself some scissors. Now I can start adding some dimension. Let's put those away. I can add some dimension. I think I'll add some 3D tape to the back of this one. Now normally I'd prep all this sort of thing first, but because this is the type of card that it is, it sort of evolves as you're working with it. I wasn't quite sure where I'd be going, and at one stage I did think about using other shapes, perhaps hearts or something, but I do like the triangles. Now you notice that some of these triangles, the ones that I'm layering from the top, I'm pointing down, and the ones that I'm layering from the bottom of the card here, I'm pointing upwards. Again, I think that adds just a nice symmetry to the card, and I think that's what helps balance this card so well. And because of the nature of the triangle, I think that's why this card works really well. And it will also work with any style of paper, I think. But I think what I might do actually, at some stage, I will definitely try working on to the pattern background onto actually a piece of the design paper and use plain embossed papers to make these triangles. I think that would be really interesting, a really different type of effect. Actually, I'd be interested to know, thinking about it, that how many of you bought the MDF storage unit today that was on the shows, and how many of you will be using these papers to decorate that. I mean, I think that would be a really lovely use of the papers, because you're creating a project that you'll be using daily and you'll have sitting on your desk, so it gives you the opportunity to sit and look at these beautiful papers as well on a piece of useful sort of stationery, sort of furniture on your desk. I think that's a lovely way to do it, and I think that's the reason why Lisa brings sort of MDF and papers to you at the same time, because it's lovely making cards for other people, but I think it's even nicer to make the projects for yourself, so you can sit and look at these beautiful things on your desk when you sit and craft. I think, you know, there we are. There, we can see that way that's coming together, and sort of keep the symmetry because we're using triangles. Triangles have got 3 sides, so I've just used 3D foam on the back of 3 triangles there. So that comes together all really nicely. Oh, I think Hazel agrees with that too. In the background. Excuse her. We do have work in the background at the moment. We've got a new boiler being fitted, so we've been without hot water for probably about 2 weeks now. So it'll be quite exciting when we get a new boiler finally and everything works properly. And I think she's barking at the boiler man. There we are. So I'm putting the 3D foam there. Now what I'm going to do, because we've got this aperture in the card, we don't want that to collapse in the centre. So if we would do that, and when we were posting this, this will actually collapse into the centre, and we want to keep that dimension behind that aperture there. So I'm just going to place another piece of 3D foam diagonally, actually, that will support the body of the card, and it will keep that aperture away from the back of the card. I think I might actually put another piece in, like so. There we are. I think actually the sample that I sent to Lisa, I didn't 3D this. So that's what will make this card look completely different to that one actually. It's always nice to do something a little bit different, is to have little variations on perhaps a design that you can make a lot of. Okay, so let's add that there. Make sure that that's centered. Excuse me, my head's got to come in for a second. There we are. Oh, again. There we are. There we are. So, and you can see now we've got. If I can, oh, I can see my head coming in there. You've got a lovely shot of my my silvery highlights. There we are. So now my head's out of the way. You can see now we've got a lot of dimension going on in that card, and we've also got that aperture going on there, which I think is it just gives it a real. An unusual feature, I think, and that sits really nicely on there. Now, we need to sort the greeting out, don't we? You would have seen the washi tape as well, which, again, is just something so unusual. And the fact that you get 10 metres of it, I mean, can you actually imagine how much 10 metres is? That is a huge amount of washi tape. But what is a really good idea that Lisa's done for us, she's put on these strips of the ticker words, very similar to other stamps and the worded sheet that she's had in the past. So we've got some really useful phrases here, and they're so easy just to cut out and mount onto a bit of card and use as your sentiment for the front of your cards. So I think what I might do is put a happy birthday on this one. I'll just show you how we do this from scratch. Now, although this is washi, as Lisa said, it is actually on a backing. It has got a backing to it, so it's not like the thinner rolls of. Oh, excuse that noise in the background. Boiler man's decided to drill. It's been super quiet up until now. But as I say, this washi tape, it is self-adhesive, but it's also got the backing on it, which enables you to just to cut that so easily. And although it's really slim and really thin, it cuts really well on the guillotine. So I don't know if you know, if you've tried cutting some thinner pieces of paper or card on a guillotine, it doesn't always work, does it? It sort of rips and tears, and you wish you hadn't have done it, and you wish you just sort of taken your scissors to it in the first place. So, but that cuts so well on the guillotine. Now, I'm just going to remove the backing, which again, probably a silly thing to do live on air, but I'll just show you that it can be done. You might need to get the pokey tool. You just might need a little bit of patience. There we are, it's coming. So we can remove that backing. So in effect, like Lisa said this morning, we have got a sticker. So we can remove that. Now I'm using the one on the black background. If you want that to go a real solid black, then obviously you can stick this onto, I'm just going to put it onto the magnet, you can stick this onto a dark background, and that will really intensify the darkness of the background here, if that's what you want to do. Equally, you can put it perhaps on the darker background that we've got sitting in the background here. Oh yeah, perhaps I'll do that. So I've got a little sheet of that here, which is the same as the background. I might put that on there actually. And because it's really slim, it might actually take on the texture of this cardstock also. So we can just lay that down onto the card, push that down really well. So what you have now is a sticker. Now you can obviously put this straight onto your project. I'm putting this onto a piece of card backing just to give it a bit more stability actually, because I actually want to 3D this. So I'm going to cut that down. And then I can just use my scissors just to cut that to length. Now I haven't stuck that very straight there. Bear with me, I can't put that on the card with that little bit showing because that would bug me. We can't have that. Okay, so I shall just use my large scissors just to take that down. There we are. Happy with that. I only needed to take a tiny bit off, but I wouldn't have been happy if I didn't do that. Okay, so now we can just trim this down to size. We can keep our, oh, congratulations, we can just keep that aside. We can use that on another card, or we could use it on this one, and we can just find a place just to lay that on the card. You can see how well that works. Equally, I could leave the sentiment off so it's ready to personalise for when I need to use it. I actually quite like that, like so. Actually, I don't think I will 3D this one. You see, now I've changed my mind. This is how I craft. I think I'm going to do one thing and I'll do something else. But there we are. I quite like that sitting there, and I like that sitting straight. So we've got a lovely sentiment. So these washi sentiments are perfect for you to use, and I just like the simplicity of them. I really do. Now, to finish off, of course, I do have to use some of these epoxy domes. We get 34 pieces, actually, you see here. They're high quality dimensional embellishments. Oh, excuse me a moment, I've got hay fever. And you can see I've used some already, and I think these would actually just work a really nice contrast against the triangles and just add that little bit of shine, because they've got a beautiful shine on them. If you can just see that one that I've added to the card, the light bounces off there, lovely. And I can just add just a few of those. We don't need much. I think perhaps just a few well placed ones. One there, and I might put a larger one in. And usually I'm terrible for using these things. I think they're so pretty that I don't always want to use them, and then I keep them aside in the drawer for best. Does anybody else do that? Keep some of their supplies for best, like you have your best clothes. Then I forget to use them. So there we are. I think we don't need any more than that. And that's basically the thinking behind, I would call this like a fresh modern card. It's a really nice card that works, as I say, for guys, for the younger people, but you know, for anybody. I think it's just a really nice, unusual design. And although you are only using small samples of the beautiful papers, I think the feel of the paper pack really does come through with them also. And if it's actually a good one to use if you are towards the end of your paper pack, if you don't have too much of your papers left and you do only have sort of little scraps, it's a really good way to use those up, because you'll see here, these are actually the pieces that I die cut these triangles from this morning. You really don't need much. I mean, these don't even amount to one A4 sheet, one 8x8 sheet themselves. So if you do only have tiny little amounts, this is a really great way to use your papers, you know, because if you line your designs up sort of so close, the dies are so good and so precise that you can really sort of line up to the edge and really maximise the use out of these fabulous papers. So I hope that's given you some insight into how to create this type of card. It's probably something a little bit different to what you would have created, but I really enjoy making cards like this, and so I really enjoyed, I was looking forward to doing this live with you today also. So I hope that really sort of gives you a starting point on how to create something like this. I'll just have a quick look back who's with us. Yeah, the pads are absolutely beautiful. So you'll be amazed with them when they come through your door and have them delivered. They look so much better in real life. So I'll say thanks for watching me this afternoon. Thanks for watching Lisa and placing your orders earlier on the shows today. And I was just thinking, are there any announcements? We'll have a live from, I think it might be Natasha this Wednesday. Natasha and Heidi alternate on a Wednesday evening. And then Dawn will be back with us on Friday at 1 o'clock also, so we'll look forward to that. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. Take care then. Bye.